Getting a fight prediction incorrect is a small price to pay when we are given the pleasure to bear witness to some pugilistic mastery. That was unbelievable by Usyk. A little bit shocking with how dominant it was. Not that he'd won. He looked sensational in there, to use a Mike Tyson word. But when we do get something that really rips things up and makes us reconsider, it can make us indulge in our emotions too much and polarise them. Usyk, as fantastic as he was, no, it doesn't mean he defeats every heavyweight in history now. And Anthony Joshua, though we did see old vulnerabilities further underlined, he's not some useless heavyweight Amir Khan, no. He still very probably is in the top 4 heavyweights in the world. The most obvious shortcoming, which seems to possibly be a chronic problem here, is this apparent lack of confidence, which is a very odd thing for a guy who's a 2-time former unified heavyweight champion. But it seems like AJ just doesn't have this inner voice to tell him what to do when things aren't going so well. If anything, he looks less confident than he did a few years ago. So all the narrative you sometimes get of, I'm still growing, I'm still learning on the job, it's all good, I'm glad everyone showed up. It's like, what's happening here? Why have you got such a worried look on your face? And when you do realise that things aren't right, why aren't you cutting loose and showing you are the bigger man? Where's that breakthrough moment that you had against Vladimir in round 5 when you bit down on the gum shield and you recognised that desperate times call for desperate measures? He was stuck, fair enough, in there with a guy who's as elusive as a mosquito, but you could tell that he wasn't willing to risk it a bit more. He didn't want to possibly get hit more. He didn't want to leave himself out of position by over-rotating with KO shots. But that's what it would have taken to try and stop those titles slipping away. But if you want to cut AJ a bit more slack, you could just say that Usyk was too damn good. The movement was tremendous because he wasn't leaving a trace of where he'd been. Sometimes if a guy keeps dipping down at a certain angle, say to avoid a jab, the other guy can realise, okay, you keep dipping low, you keep doing that, next time I'm going to meet you with an uppercut. But Usyk was just changing everything all the time, drawing from this incredible experience and natural intuition. And there's the big contrast in this fight. AJ doesn't have that natural intuition, and perhaps we saw in a little microcosm there, the guy who started boxing a bit too late, and he doesn't have that natural feel for distance and anticipation. And again, that worried look on his face, what do I do? And McCracken not helping things, telling him it's going brilliant, apparently, is what I've heard. Insane. But Usyk was slipping outside, inside, he was rolling under, never leaving a trace, and just, yes, performing out of his boots. And with this incredible victory, I think Usyk has just put the debate, for now, to bed. He is the best fighter on the planet, pound for pound. He was always in the argument anyway. This is why I never bought into the Canelo Alvarez pound for pound king narrative. It was always very hectic and tightly packed at the top. In a way, he's got a shout, right? The stuff Usyk had done at cruiserweight, the fact none of it was controversial, closest fight was Breeders, and he's just been so masterful. The fact now he's done that incredibly hard-to-do jump from cruiser to heavyweight that only Holyfield and David Haye had previously replicated, that makes him a clear pound-for-pound number 1. The clearest since Floyd Mayweather, for my money. Yes, Roman Gonzalez did deserve his moment in the sun, I felt, but this is a real solid standing now as pound-for-pound number 1. Yes, Canelo Alvarez does look like $1 million at the moment. I'm sure he's going to bash up Plant, become undisputed at 168. He might go on to bash up David Benavidez, not a bad victory. But is all of this as impressive as what Usyk has just done? Is he not just doing things we know he can do against lukewarm opposition? And, of course, the past always casts its shadow. And for Canelo Alvarez, that means when you look at the best opponents on his record, he either lost to them, or some people believe he should have lost to them twice, like Golovkin. He struggled against his best guys. The car was rattling once it got up to top speed. That is not what has happened to Usyk. If anything, he looked as good as he ever has against AJ. And he has just been super dominant with not one fight that you can really say deserved to go the other way. And in terms of future prospects, Usyk could very well fight and beat, crazy as it sounds, the Gypsy King Tyson Fury. If he did that, what would happen? Would the internet explode? I think at the very least the haters would have to get on their feet and applaud. But there's a funny thing, Usyk probably doesn't really have any haters. This is a really likeable guy, and while he may not have the brand behind him that Canelo does, that might still cheekily try and say before Plant that this is the pound for pound number one, I think we know that isn't the case anymore. He could go up and fight Beterbiev, but that guy's 36 going on 37 now. Is it even a guy in his prime? Does he even have the options to wow us like Usyk does? I don't think so. And again, he hasn't been as dominant. So I hope to see in the not too distant future across every magazine and website to do the right thing and put Usyk as numero uno.